Tēnā koutou katoa. Welcome everyone, both here in chamber today and those tuning in online, to this council meeting this Thursday, the 25th of June 2026. Before we move into our karakia, I'd just like to remind everyone that we are live streaming today's proceedings, as we do with all of our meetings, and that there are devices in front of elected members. These are used to access their council papers and reports. I'd now like to welcome forward Reverend David Van Overen of St Matthew's Anglican Church to do our opening karakia. Welcome.
Good afternoon, Mayor and councillors and those who are gathered. It's an exciting part of the year. We have just gone past winter solstice, or midwinter's day, or the shortest day. I just was calculating on my fingers because I'm not an accountant, but it is 6 months today till Christmas Day. And if I overheard the lunch conversation correctly, at a supermarket not too far from here, there's a 20% discount sale today. So start buying your presents this afternoon after council meeting at a new supermarket near you. Yesterday was the day we remember St. John the Baptist. Just a little bit of boring history about St. John. John was from a priestly family and advocated a return to the strict observance of the laws of Moses and ethical and religious standards. He baptised people as a token of their acceptance of this. John's message was popular with many, but it brought him into conflict with Herod and the rulers of Israel, many of whom followed Gentile customs. John was executed on Herod's orders. Jesus' ministry began with his baptism by John, and many of John's followers became Jesus' followers. St. John the Baptist is the patron saint of St. John, which you know as the big green machine, the ambulance. But the organisation of Hatohone St. John is far, far bigger than that. And it is far, far bigger than the paid staff, the ambulance officers and various other paid staff. Yvonne Lorcan is part of Pet Therapy, which is a community program of Hatohone St. John. I am the area committee chair of Hawke's Bay and have been a chaplain for close on 20 years. This is the week we raise money. There's a bucket appeal today. So when you go to the Flaxmere supermarket for that 20% discount for your Christmas present, I bet you there's a St. John bucket somewhere. Put your money in it. But it's not just about St. John. Many of the people in this community, many of you in this room, volunteer your time above and beyond that which you are paid for. You will be part of civil defence, part of Hatohone St. John, FENS. You will be part of a marae community that opened up and continues to be available to open up when we are in a time of crisis. Without volunteers and without emergency services and the other agencies that surround them, our community would be so much poorer. Next time you see Hatohone St. John somewhere, remember that at their core, at their origin, they were a Christian organisation. And whilst they have travelled beyond that to be a professional organisation serving our community's health and well-being, they have that as their core. And everyone who volunteers or is paid in an organisation like the ones I've mentioned does it for the health and well-being of our community. And so I will stop preaching now to the converted and offer a prayer as you enter into your time of meeting and making decisions for our community. God, our strength and our hope, grant us the courage of John the Baptist, constantly to speak the truth, boldly to seek justice, and patiently to do what is right. Hear this prayer for your love's sake. Amen.
Thank you, Reverend David, and thank you also for highlighting a worthy organisation within our community and a fundraising day. I will make sure I go look out for that bucket and put something in it. Reverend David highlighted another joyful thing that happened for our community earlier today, and I'd like to acknowledge everyone who was able to make it this morning. I know not everyone was able to, but a huge milestone for our Flaxmere community with the opening of the brand new Woolworths supermarket. For those of you who have been here for a long time, you will know, and I acknowledge Councillor Watkins as our longest serving councillor, that this has been a very long journey, decades in fact, and I would like to take a moment to acknowledge our Chief Executive and his staff for the huge amount of work that has gone into helping make this happen, because it started with vision, it started with identifying a need, and then it moved through finding the right partners to work with and then making sure proper consenting processes were followed, but also working efficiently as an organisation. And to hear TW Property stand up this morning and publicly say that our council has been the best one that they have worked with on a project was really heartening, and to hear that echoed by Woolworths was as well. So I'd like to pause for a minute and just invite our Chief Executive if he has any words on that. I'm putting you on the spot.
Thank you, Worship, for not putting me on the spot. Pleasure to talk about all the positive things that are happening in Paharakiki, but it's worth reflecting that it has been a very long time that the community's sought to have a full-service supermarket, and I think it's the latest exciting development and a really big milestone for the community this morning, but builds on a whole lot of milestones that are happening. Only a couple of weeks ago that we celebrated the opening of the new Te Paharakiki Senior Housing Village, multiple consents issued for more affordable homes and rentals coming, and it goes back to a vision that's been held for a long time around it being fabulous Flaxmere's time, and just really, really exciting to see that vision coming to life. So, acknowledgement for the councils and councils that have gone before that have held that vision over a very long time, and huge appreciation for the work of Raoul and Shane, the growth team, the consenting team that have worked in partnership to make sure that that's been delivered.
Thank you. And I'd like to take a moment just to acknowledge former Mayor Sandra as well, because she was an absolute advocate for fabulous Flaxmere and this mahi, and it would be remiss not to acknowledge her as well. So thank you, everyone. A great way to start the day, and now we will move into our mahi. So first of all, we have no apologies or leaves of absence requests. None have been received to date. Are there any from the floor? Deputy Mayor Fowler.
Yes, thank you, Worship. Thursday, the 30th of July, please.
Thank you. Are there any others? Councillor Nolustik.
26 September to 11 October, please.
Thank you. And I will come now to Councillor O'Keefe.
I may have already asked for leave of absence, but I'll just make sure. It's for a lateness on these days. Should be back by midday. 30th of July and the 2nd of July.
Thank you, Councillor O'Keefe. Any other requests? No, in which case, can I please have a mover that those be accepted? Thank you, Councillor Watkins, seconded by Councillor Lorcan. I will put that motion. All those in favour? Any against? Thank you, that's carried. Just a reminder that as we move through the agenda, if there are any conflicts of interest, if you can declare them at the time, please. So we'll now move on to item 4, which is confirmation of minutes. We have minutes from the council meeting held on Thursday, the 7th of May, and minutes from the extraordinary council meeting held on Tuesday, the 2nd of June. These have been previously circulated. Before I ask for someone to move that we accept those, are there any questions or corrections? No, thank you. Can I please have a mover that we accept those? Thank you, Councillor Ratcliffe. Seconder. Thank you, Deputy Mayor Fowler. I'll put that. All those in favour? Aye. Any against? Thank you, that's carried. We now move into item 5, which is the Mayor's update. You will note that this came out as a supplementary attachment, so hopefully you've all had a chance to read it, and I will take it as read. But before I open for any questions or comments, I just want to draw together some of the important strands from what's been a very demanding month for both council and our community. The annual plan has understandably been a major focus for everyone here. People have been very clear through the process, our consultation process, that household and business budgets are under real pressure, and that any rates increase compounds the rising cost of food, power, insurance, rent, mortgages, and fuel. And this table heard that loud and clear, as did our staff. The long-term plan had forecast an average rate increase for this year of 10%. Council has now been able to reduce that to 5.9% on average through focused work on organisational efficiencies, savings, better programming of projects, and a range of other actions. The long-term plan had also forecast an 8.4 million operational shortfall this year. Through work already undertaken, that was reduced to a projected 4.8 million before consultation. The council has now agreed that the remaining forecast operational borrowing should be avoided, and we've tasked our chief executive with that. And there will be regular reporting back to this table on how we are going. That means finding the necessary savings and making decisions required to balance the budget for this year. It also reflects a significant amount of work by elected members and staff, and I really want to take a moment to acknowledge that, because even getting down from the forecast 10% and 8.4 million of borrowing was a huge undertaking. We also need to not lose sight though, and I know no one around this table has, that 5.9% is still an increase, and it will still be difficult for many people. Our job now is to continue finding savings needed to balance this year's budget, deliver the work responsibly and transparently, those two pieces are very important, and carry that same discipline that we have formed into the long-term planning process so that we can keep doing what our community has asked of us. As we know, most of the more straightforward savings have already been identified, and from here, further reductions are likely to involve real choices about services, assets, facilities, functions, and levels of service. And we will need to have honest conversations with our community about those trade-offs so that people understand not only what can be saved, but what that may mean in order to achieve that. The revaluation has also carried forward a very real concern from the commercial and industrial ratepayers. The additional consultation that council has agreed gives the whole community, not just those in that area, but the whole community, the opportunity to consider how any changes would affect the way rates are shared across the district. That is the fair and proper next step, and I thank the council for supporting that. Alongside this, we're also dealing with major decisions about the future shape of local government here in Te Mātua Māui. The government's reform program is moving very quickly, and Hastings continues to be active in that process rather than waiting for others to determine what happens next for our district. And thank you all for your ongoing involvement in this process. The over 670 early responses we received were incredibly helpful from our community and demonstrated that people seem to be less concerned with structures for their own sake than with what that means for services. They want to make sure that services will remain accessible. They want to understand whether costs are controlled, whether infrastructure will be maintained, and whether Hastings remains and retains a meaningful voice in that process. And those are the tests that we must keep applying as we move through this. Energy is another area where strong leadership continues to be needed, and we are actively working. The recent Hawke's Bay Energy Summit hosted by the Hawke's Bay Chamber of Commerce confirmed what growers, processors and manufacturers had already been telling us through our recent food production forum meetings, that energy reliability and cost are increasingly affecting investment, jobs and confidence. Council cannot solve national energy settings, but we can help bring the right people together, advocate clearly for the region, and support practical work on the options such as biomass, biogas, and other regional collaboration. I also want to acknowledge the progress that's been made on the future of large-scale vegetable processing in Hawke's Bay, which as a major food producing region is incredibly important, not just to our people, but our economy. This month marked an important step forward. After weeks of work by growers, supported by this council, CHB, and the many staff behind it, government confirmed support for the first stage of an independent grower-led feasibility study. That initial support allows work to begin, and as the study develops and the scale of the opportunity becomes clearer, we'll continue making the case for support needed to take the next steps. Finally, as our Chief has already alluded to, we had another joyous thing this month, the opening of Te Pahara Kiki. It was strong evidence of what happens when practical partnerships can deliver 39 warm, secure and affordable homes for older residents in Flaxmere. When we look at all of these strands pulled together, we are demonstrating through action that this council is one that is responding to immediate pressure while also looking ahead. And I thank you all for your support and mahi over the last month. So on that note, are there any questions or comments? No? Otherwise, I'm happy to move the Mayor's report be accepted from the Chair. Can I have a seconder, please? Thank you, Councillor Daniel. So I'll put the recommendations, which are on page 9. All those in favour? Aye. Any against? Thank you, that's carried. Okay, team, we'll now move on to item 6, which is page 11 of your agenda. And I'd like to welcome forward Ian to take us through this paper.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Good afternoon, councillors. I'll take these reports as read. However, I'd just like to clarify why there are now 2 reports. The first report is simply to do with the new bus stops following the consultation that was asked for in our December meeting. And the second report is just about the few locations such as the central city and around the hospital that will require road marking, as well as all of the old bus stops that are no longer being used that can be removed. Thank you.
Thank you, Ian. And just a reminder and more of note for those who may be tuning in online, this particular paper is a follow-on from one we received in December last year, I believe, yes, where the role of the Regional Council is to decide bus routes and provide that service, and the role of the Hastings District Council is to work with them to identify bus stops along those routes. That was a painstaking process that was undertaken, and during that process we identified some neighbourhoods that raised concerns. So a commitment was made by this council in December for the staff to undertake more work with those communities who had raised concerns to see if they could be overcome. This report is the resulting outcome. So I'll open now for questions if anyone has any. I'll come first to Councillor Milmine.
Thank you, and through your worship. So I had a bit of feedback from the community in February when these were initially, I guess the first round of them were implemented. And I have again had feedback from the community since this paper has been released that they are not still comfortable. And I see, so specifically Upham Street was one of them, which the report says there was CCTV on the buses. So I would just like to understand the outcome of that CCTV, if you're able to provide some detail around that.
Certainly. So we did have a street meeting with the Upham Street residents alongside our partners at Hawke's Bay Regional Council. And they, with the cameras on the buses, were able to monitor the traffic situation along Upham Street when the buses are going along. And my understanding is that they didn't see any real issues for concern with the buses, and they were operating fine down those streets. So wasn't any, seen as any specific need to alter those routes after that, those monitoring.
Thank you. So just to confirm then, closing that off, that the consultation, the residents of that street have been consulted with again to advise that this is going ahead?
Yes, my understanding was that a letter was sent out after the monitoring, telling them of the results, and the locations where the specific locations where we are installing stops, they were consulted on separately.
Okay, that differs to the community views that I have received, so I think that needs to be noted somewhere.
Thank you, Councillor Milmine. We'll take away as an action that it be checked that the letters were sent to the residents in that street, just to confirm, and we'll feed that back. It is worth checking up on. While the outcome might not be what the residents were hoping for, we need to make sure they were communicated with effectively. And actually, I'll just build on Councillor Milmine's question with one of my own. Looking at 4.4, it notes that the majority of objections mention safety, and it also notes that as each of the proposed bus stop locations within existing parking lanes with sufficient space for a bus to pull over, clear of any driveways, these matters are considered manageable within normal operations of the road corridor. So all I'm seeking is just confirmation that we've considered all the safety concerns raised and are satisfied that they don't pose an imminent threat.
Yes, certainly, Mayor, Madam Mayor. I cleared it with my team. We had careful looks at all of these locations, specifically where the further issues were raised, and we considered that they're perfectly safe.
Thank you. Mr. Fu?
Through your worship, I think the other key point to note is as traffic conditions change over time, for example, we may have developments go in areas, then it would be required where we'd always review those just to make sure they stay safe locations, because obviously our network and our properties and what goes on a road changes. So that just remains as part of an ongoing road safety, public transport. And through the regional council's contractor, they will also raise if they come across any operational issues, because they have contractual obligations on themselves around safe operation.
Thank you, Mr. Fu. I'll come now to Councillor Ratcliffe.
Thank you, Your Worship, and through you. 400 metres is a recurring distance throughout this. Is that just point of clarification really, is this the target maximum distance excuse me, to a bus stop from anyone's front door, or is it the minimum distance between stops, or is it both?
It's best practice, rather than any specific minimum or maximum. And in a few locations where we have moved stops following the initial consultation, we've stretched it out a little bit further than 400, but we have tried to keep within that range. Rather than, and ideally we wouldn't be too much closer than that either, but again, depending on specific routes and locations, it's sometimes hard to find ideal locations, but we've tried to be as close as possible to that 400 metre best practice.
Right, so that's best practice from someone's front door to the nearest bus stop, and best practice from each bus stop to the next bus stop?
Best practice from between bus stops.
Between bus stops. Great, thank you.
I'll come now to Councillor Nixon.
Thank you, Your Worship. As a one-time Wellingtonian, I certainly am supportive of public transport, and I see we don't get a lot of statistical information, and we are committed because we provide the bus stops, the shelters, and that sort of thing. So we have money in the game as well. I see there was a figure, and I've now lost it, I think, showing a slight increase in public transport in the first 2 months or 3 months. I've lost it. Oh, thank you. 5.6%. How often do we get updates on the usage of public transport and the breakdown sort of by routes? Because we need to be able to assess how successful these changes have been to know whether to continue them or to support the continuation, or whether to suggest something alternative.
Thank you, Councillor Nixon. I might just tack a question of my own onto the end of yours. which is just understanding HTC's role in this process. So obviously it's the regional council that decides the routes, and we'll be monitoring the numbers. But in terms of discretion around not providing bus stops, can you just talk to us a little bit about that? And I might come to Mr. Thu if that's the better place to be.
Through your worship, just in terms of the second part of that question, around, as you stated at the start, on behalf of the community watching, the regional council has the responsibilities of providing a public transport service, both in terms of buses, and they also have other particular services relating to government programs around where people have mobility issues. They set the routes working alongside the RCAs, and we have an obligation of managing and working with them for stops. What this council did in its earlier decision also realised that perhaps not every stop needs to be marked, and the second paper talks to marking those where there may be operational issues, because there might be lots of car park. And so what the proposal is, these will have, apart from the second paper, most of these stops will just have a sign, and be stated, and the sign will also have a time of operation, and it won't be marked. Those that are high intensity, where there are parking issues closer to where there may be schools, closer to the CBD, will be marked just to make sure it is a safe operation. In terms of the operational efficiency and reporting of public transport, I think the key piece for that will typically be getting reported through to the Regional Transport Committee by the Regional Transport staff, and obviously our Councillors Fowler and Malus to report to that. They will get those reports, but we can also ask for a summary report from time to time if it's of interest to Council to put into performance and monitoring, just as an update. I'm aware, wasn't in the meeting, but I'm aware it's the street meetings. So in that earlier consultation, there was feedback from whole streets, like Upham Street, like the Arataki area, around questions of the route as a whole. And the report, as NSC, includes the discussion HBRC was involved with those routes. A question was asked, well, if no one actually hops on the bus on this route, will we carry on going around? And my understanding of the response, and Councillor Fowler may even confirm to me, is actually if it's not working and it needs to be in a different area, the whole point is being agile to what the community needs are. So that may be a new node, because our community moves out further as we have subdivisions, but it also may be actually there's no use, we're not picking up anyone, that's not the greatest use of the bus driving around in those areas. So it is about actively monitoring around the utilisation. HBRC themselves have targets and revenue pieces they're trying to meet, because it's not a fully funded from the National Land Transport Fund service either. So everyone has to try and make the cost of running a public service work as well.
Thank you, Mr. Thu. In answer to your question, Councillor Nixon, fortunately, our rep within that group is Deputy Mayor Fowler, who is also the Chair of Performance and Monitoring, so I'm sure we can prevail upon him to occasionally bring those stats through Performance and Monitoring. Okay, I'll come now to Deputy Mayor Fowler.
Yep, thank you, and through your worship, most of it's been said, but as Mr. Thu said, I asked the question because I've been contacted about empty buses driving around Havelock North and the cost of that, even though it's got nothing to do with our bus stops. They will change the route probably after 12 to 18 months if there's no demand to put it onto other areas as well. And to the point, I can make it a standing item if this committee agrees to put on performance and monitoring, because we do get reports about the usage. And just the final thing that was announced today, that a 9-year contract has been signed with Transit, family-owned New Zealand company, to provide zero-emission electric buses from 1st of August 2027. So,
Fabulous, thank you for that update. I'm actually going to come back to Councillor Nixon, because it looks like he's had something pop into his mind that may be related, so I will let him jump the queue.
It wasn't a question. I really just wanted to support Deputy Mayor Fowler in suggesting they could report more regularly, and I definitely would support that, because we do. It's important to our economy, but we also spend a lot of money on bus stops and so on. So I'd love to see it.
All right, I'll come now to Councillor Gibson.
Thank you, Your Worship. Just expanding on Deputy Mayor Fowler and Councillor Nixon, it's just we are in partnership by providing infrastructure, but it's not just infrastructure. There is an impact on the environment. to the Hastings district. And I'm concerned about the big, huge buses. Yes, they might be going electric, but that is a massive piece of machinery that still has to be charged, has to soak up energy, and it's running around empty. We might as well just have an Uber driver running around. And can we put an action in to get smaller? If they're going to go electric, can we have smaller minivans until there's an uptake? Because I don't think changing the route will change the fact that they're empty. So we might as well have a smaller van. And I think that's something we should be submitting and through the
I'll invite you, Councillor Gibson, to work with Councillor Nixon, who in the past has submitted many a time to the Regional Council on such issues, and so I'm sure he can take you through that process. So I'll leave that in your capable hands. We'll come now to Councillor Lorcan.
Yes, thank you, Chair. I notice in the attachments with the feedback, it's referred to, one of the destinations for stops is referred to as Lumsden Street. It's Lumsden Road. Always Lumsden Road.
Great eagle eyes there, thank you. That will be noted.
Yes, apologies and thank you for picking up that. There was also a spelling mistake. I apologise to the residents of called Tuku Street. It is with a U and not an O, so that can be amended as well.
Thank you. Those corrections will be noted. So if there are no further questions, can I please have a mover for the recommendations as outlined on page 13? Thank you, Councillor Noel Oostic, seconded by Councillor Ratcliffe. And before we put the motion, I'd just like to balance the conversation a little. As many of you, I have received calls and emails from people who have either not been thrilled about a new bus stop in their backyard or have seen empty buses driving around. However, I am happy to report that I've also had an equal number, if not more, of communications from people saying how wonderful it is to have greater access to public transport, particularly those from our disabled whānau and older whānau. So I do understand that there are always mixed views in community when it comes to issues like this, and I am heartened to see there is a balance there. So I will put the, Councillor Nixon.
I just thought you just raised another issue. I wonder if I could ask another question.
Please.
Do we have to do anything with the bus stops in order to handle disability buses, which the whole fleet isn't disability yet, but it's heading that way? Does that require us any changes? So
what I'll do is, staff, or Ian, if you can't answer that today, I'm happy for you to take that away as an action to come back to us. Information on anything we may need to do in terms of curbside access for disabled people. Is that something you'd like to come back to us on?
I can respond to that now. So yes, unfortunately, a lot of our footpaths and bus stops aren't 100% accessible. Some of these new bus stops are away from the footpath edge, and unfortunately we do not have the funding currently to improve those locations, but it is definitely something we can we'll be looking at in the future.
So I think we'll note that down as an action for some information to come back to us in the correct forum around that. Excellent. All right, well, if there's no further comments or debate, I will put the recommendations as outlined on page 13. All those in favour? Any against? Thank you, that's carried. All right, still on bus stops. We're now moving on to item 7, which is the bus stop markings. I also believe quite possibly this is the longest recommendation I've ever seen in this council's history. So we will be taking it in parts, but I will invite Mr. Thu to speak to it first of all.
Through you, Madam Chair. Ian talked about it just earlier, but largely this is an administrative report. Its key outcome is removing any formal traffic control as in a bus stop from the list if it's no longer a bus stop. The other piece is where we are proposing to mark it, because there is a high intensity. It's the reason it's a really long list is under the traffic bylaws it needs to be adopted by you, because you haven't provided that delegation through to the transportation manager listed out. So whilst it looks really long and complex, Your Worship, it's largely an administrative matter that follows on from your earlier recommendations. So we're happy to take questions.
Thank you. So we'll open with questions first of all, team. Are there any questions regarding this particular paper? I'll come first to Councillor Mulwine.
Thank you, through Your Worship. 4.11 mentions that some of these may be fit for relocation and that will be considered at a later date. I just wonder if it would be possible to consider that at this point and then make those relocations part of the actual marking out in the paper before?
So that refers only to the shelters themselves, not to the bus stops or the markings.
Yeah, sorry.
And so we considered, and particularly with the first round of consultation, that was a point of confusion for a lot of residents who thought we were going to be putting bus shelters outside their houses when we had no intention to. So it was considered prudent to separate out those two issues, deal with the bus stops, make sure that the buses can be operating safely, and then as a separate exercise to look at the shelters themselves and whether they can be, whether we need new ones, whether some can be relocated. Part of working with HBRC to identify those busy stops will be a big part of that exercise as well. So it's good to have the buses actually operating for a while to find out where those busy locations are.
Thank you, that makes sense. Just wanting to make sure, obviously, we're being efficient with everything. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Milne. Councillor Ratcliffe.
Thank you, Your Worship, and through you, I noticed on recommendation D23 to remove the stop inside the hospital entrance. Is there a risk there of lower service levels or loss of reputation? Is that stop being replaced?
Yes, there have been some discussions with the hospital and with some residents. The bus stop is will now be located out front of the hospital on the street, and we are making some improvements to the crossing as well to make sure that people can cross the road safely there. But yes, it is a drop in levels of service for those who previously could catch the bus right outside the front door of the hospital, now need to walk through the car park. That is something we are continuing to work through with the hospital to try and make that as easy as possible. But it was my understanding is that just making that turn and going in and out of the hospital was a significant delay for the buses. So by providing the stops on street, it means that those buses can operate much better.
And I'll jump in here and say, as someone who lives very close to the hospital and drives past each day and always makes sure she pauses and lets the bus come out of the hospital car park as it's tried to do so, it's not always the way, so I can see why it's had to be challenged.
Yeah, thank you, and reassured to hear that it sounds like it was well consulted on, and I can fully appreciate how that turning circle would be tight for a bus. I did have one other question, if I may.
Please.
I've made a note to myself, but I'm failing to find the exact part of the report that it's in. There was mention somewhere in there of not marking some spots, and again, identifying the risk of lower service level and loss of reputation. Just looking for reassurance, I suppose, that that is normal and safe.
And I think I'll tack on to the end of that. How are we monitoring that to make sure that if buses can't find somewhere to pull over or whatever, that will be addressed?
Exactly. Thank you.
Through your worship, I'll pick up that on behalf of the team. As I talked earlier and as per the earlier conversation with council, one of the fears of many of the residents was marking everywhere, even though it may not stop there often. And so once the bus stops there, we've actually created a formal stop. Putting the marking there actually creates a limitation on parking during operational time. So what the approach was, it saves money not painting them all and maintaining them all, because that gets repainted every once or every second year, depending on use. The operational approach is to work with HBRC and the bus operator to understand if there are any operational issues. So if we start running into issues where the cars are parking and they cannot use that stop and it's in demand, then we'd be revisiting those and actually looking to propose to put a stop in. And so that just becomes an operational monitoring. It also gives flexibility as we work through. If some of these routes change, as per the earlier conversation, we actually haven't gone and invested a lot of capital into some of those new route locations, say, for example, on Arataki area or so forth, and we haven't invested ahead of time. So it's just an ongoing monitoring and also reduction in spend at this tight time.
Thank you. Follow-up question then, if I may. Is there a middle option here where a dotted yellow line or something could be used to indicate that the parking is only permitted at certain times? That would sort of save us from having to paint a full bus stop, but indicate that it's not a great place to park while the buses are running.
Mr. Thurr?
So through you, Your Worship, I can ask the team to have a look at what options are. So many decade ago, actually last century, I'm getting too old, what used to happen is they used to put yellow half circles on the curb and channel, on the edge. Unfortunately, no one in the community knew what that meant. So it has to also be natural and for people to understand it, see it and notice it. So I can ask the team to have a look at that and what options are, and we can come back to council if something is worthwhile. But if it's not easily legible, it still may not achieve the goal.
Yeah, without wanting to allocate too much time to it, if we can take that away as an action, that would
Absolutely.
be much appreciated.
And I don't think it'll stop us from adopting the recommendations today. It's just an ongoing piece of work.
I'm just worried about the person who's standing there.
Yes.
And all the cars are parked there and the bus goes roaring by and they're left standing in the rain.
Absolutely hear your concern. Thank you, Councillor Ratcliffe. I'll come now to Councillor Nixon.
Thank you, Your Worship. I'd like to follow up on Councillor Ratcliffe's question regarding the access to buses at the hospital. And I just wonder because it's a major hub. I mean, I've spent a lot of time in the hospital the last few years, and it's one of the points where people really do get on and off buses. What are we doing to ensure that people actually know it has shifted and where to? And have we because I'm not sure if they stop both sides of Amahu Road or just what they do. That is a high traffic, quite high speed traffic way. And it actually concerns me that we are putting a lot of people who, visitors as well as patients who are suffering various immobility problems. And I just wonder if we've got that right. I just feel that...
And I think that's something we could ask the team to come back and give us more information on, Councillor Nixon. But Mr. Thurr, if you have any comment.
Through Your Worship, I almost reiterate, I think that's something we can ask HBRC to report back, and we just can send around council around what was discussed. It's a challenging situation, and the operational ability of the bus routes and its way working through, as has already been talked about, but we can get that background information of what conversation has happened with the hospital in operation and what level of information they're providing to their visitors and guests who may need the service.
I do understand the problems. It's the one bus stop that I really had doubts about right from the beginning. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Nixon. We'll take that away as an action for the team to update us. I'll come now to Councillor Noel Newstick.
Thank you, Chair. Seeing we've done probably addressed to Mr. Thew, seeing we've done such massive changes to the bus transport system, and I see there's a lot of sites that to be removed. If I could ask that, I understand reading somewhere in the report that to completely get rid of all the paint on the street side, it needs to be resealed. But if we could just black them out with paint for 12 or 18 months, and as the system beds in to see whether it all truly works or not.
Through Your Worship, strictly speaking, under the rule, we're not allowed to use black paint, but everyone does. However, if it's going to be for a long period of time, what we find is black paint doesn't last very long, particularly because we reflectorise the lines with recycled glass. That's how you get the lines reflecting at night, and you will be aware a mirror is just clear glass painted black on the back, and so at night time it'll light up, and that's the issue you'll find on the expressway at the moment with the temporary marking. So the team will look through the timing of how they're removed. So if there's a sealing site coming up, then actually can we black paint it because there might be seal coming up in 6 to 9 months, versus sites that actually may need water blasting because these actually the seal's relatively new and we're not going to be coming back for 3, 5, 10 years' time. So they'll work through a rational approach to make best use of funds working through, but also minimise operational cost of continuous painting.
Thank you, Mr. Thu. I'll come now to Councillor Gibson.
Yeah, just expanding on Councillor Ratcliffe, I'm not a keen fan of this clearway idea of having markings with at certain times. It's just time and resources that we don't need to be spending, and if it's an operational matter, it should be dealt with by the operational people. And if there's never anyone catching the bus at that place, why would you have a marking clearway or otherwise? I think it should be left to operational.
Okay, so I think we'll move away from this line of conversation, team. The staff have noted a request to have a look at that in whatever way is most efficient, as emphasised by Councillor Noel Lustig. Thank you, and they will do that. So I'll bring us back to the recommendations, which are outlined beginning page 24. And what I'm going to suggest is that we actually take them in batches. So I'm suggesting that we will take A and B, which is first to receive the report and secondly to approve those listed locations requiring pavement marking first, which would mean that we're looking at the recommendations outlined on page 24 and 25. I'm very happy to move from the chair. Can I have a seconder for those two? Thank you, Councillor Ratcliffe. So if there's no further questions or debate, great, we'll just put those two recommendations. All those in favour? Any against? Thank you, that's carried. Unfortunately, Councillor Nixon, we were mid-vote. So we will now move on to recommendations C and D, which is council revokes any previous approvals and also approves the removal of the specified bus stop signs and markings. This recommendation flows on from pages 25 through to 28. Are there any questions or debate? No, in which case I'm just going to carry forward myself as the mover and Councillor Ratcliffe as the seconder if he's happy to do so. Great, and I'll put those recommendations. All those in favour? Any against? Thank you, that's carried. Thank you, team, and thank you, Ian, for your work on this. Right, so we'll now move on to item 8, which is the Esk River flood risk and the notification of proposed plan change. While we wait for the team to come forward, I'll just remind everyone that the paper we are debating today is around public notification. So I just really want to hone in our debate and conversation on that. That is what this paper is about. Welcome. I'll hand over to you.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So I will take my report largely as read, but there are a few key points that I just want to make. Firstly, that this report relates to your district plan. This report is primarily process-led, with substantive decisions being made in the future by a hearings panel. So in terms of the district plan, it is a statutory document for the council, and it sits within a planning hierarchy as outlined on my slide, and it must give effect to the higher order documents. So I've outlined what those obligations to council are in my report, but I did just want to emphasise the need for the district plan to give effect to the regional policy statement. So under the Resource Management Act, district councils and regional councils share the responsibility for natural hazard management, and the regional policy sets out what each authority does. So the Hawke's Bay Regional Councils provides hazard information, builds protection works, etc., while the Hastings District Councils use that information to control land use. So the land use rules that we put in our district plan must give effect to that regional policy statement objective, which is the avoidance and mitigation of adverse effects of natural hazards on people's safety, property and economic livelihood. So the recommendation before you today is to approve public notification of the plan change. So you're giving council officers permission to release it for public submissions. It allows the mapping and the proposed rules to be submitted on by landowners, stakeholders and the general public. This plan change will then get tested through the Schedule 1 process or the hearings process, which is a rigorous process, as anyone that's been involved in it will know. So since the Regional Council released the hazard mapping, we have been seeking feedback from landowners and stakeholders, and I've given just an overview of the summary of the feedback that we have received. The Regional Council and Napier City Council has also been receiving feedback. After reviewing the feedback that we've received, and I won't go through it line by line, I remain of the opinion that the plan change should be notified for public submissions. Fundamentally, the objective of the plan change is to ensure that the river hazard is represented fairly and accurately in our district plan, so that future land use decisions are appropriately informed. It is, the rules in our district plan are future looking. They're not about land use that currently exists already in the area. So in terms of next steps, we will continue to talk to any landowners and stakeholders that wish to speak with us on this plan change, and the commitment is that we would notify it within a month of your decision. So I'm happy to answer any questions on the plan changing process.
Thank you. I am going to come to Councillor Montepere-Henry first, as she's already alerted me of something that she needs to raise.
Thank you. Just for transparency, on this day my husband works in the East Valley and I do know the Gale whānau. Thank you.
And do you determine that any form of conflict, Councillor? No. Okay, thank you. All right, so I'm opening just to questions first of all, team. So I will come first to Councillor Gibson.
Thank you, Your Worship. We've got three questions. The first question, mapping accuracy and liability. Can staff confirm that the flood mapping fully reflects post-cyclone Gabriel silt removal and recovery works? And if not, what legal and financial risks could council face if we impose planning restrictions based on mapping that does not accurately reflect the current ground conditions?
Councillor, I'll remind you that it's the Regional Council that's done the mapping, and that is their responsibility. It's not for our officers to answer that.
Well, we're relying that this is accurate.
That's the law.
And I would be laying this on the table and asking them to do their job properly.
Councillor Gibson, we're not in debate, we're in questions.
That's why I'm asking questions. So my second question, future risk assumptions. Does the modelling assume that conditions present during
Councillor, I'll stop you. Councillor, point of order, and Councillor, stop speaking please. I'm talking as the chair. I've informed you that the modelling is not done by our council. It is not for us to question. If your questions are about the modelling, you need to take a seat. You're very welcome to ask questions about the notification process.
Well, I just question whether this should be even coming to council.
Councillor,
Point of order, Your Worship. We're here to receive, not to debate this.
Thank you. I am going to uphold that point of order. Again, I'll remind you that is the Regional Council's process. I'm very happy to accept questions around the notification process that we're statutorily required to undertake, giving effect to those higher order documents. Right, I'll come now to Councillor Milne.
Thank you. Through you, Your Worship. Unfortunately, I haven't actually had time to read the feedback because it was only added yesterday, I believe, to the hub. So I was just made aware of it at the beginning of this meeting. So
Democratic support.
What was that? I didn't hear that.
Can you repeat that statement? Sorry.
The feedback that was added to the hub was only just added yesterday, I believe. I haven't had a chance to read it.
The team will have a look at that, but irrespective, if you've got questions,
Yeah.
please
So
feel free
just
to
wanting
ask
to
them.
make that note that, you know, obviously I'm talking about having read that, unfortunately. So I note that we are taking a conservative approach to this, and that obviously Regional Council have given us their advice, but as you know, there's avoidance and there's mitigation, and I wonder if we could be looking at a mitigation approach as opposed to avoidance or prohibiting this at this point.
I'll come to the officers and ask, is that something that will be tested through the hearings process?
Yes.
So that is part of the process, and it is an independent hearings process.
Okay. Thank you.
But thank you for raising it. Councillor Corbyn.
Thank you, Your Worship. My question is on notification. How are we ensuring that all owners and stakeholders are notified and aware of the plan change? What methods are we using?
Thank you, Councillor.
The usual process of informing landowners is primarily through email, given that that is the fastest way to inform landowners. Snail mail can take quite a long time, and when you're looking at a submission period of 20 working days, we want to maximise the amount of time that people have to consider this. So we will primarily use email when we hold that information. Otherwise, we will be sending letters out. And it will also be in the newspaper, on Council's website, and in the libraries as usual.
Councillor Corbyn?
I'm particularly concerned about stakeholders who won't be on the email list, not property owners, but people that are working on the land or leasing it or whatever, and relying on them finding it rather than us contacting them directly. I'd really like to see something more proactive than them stumbling on it on the website or the newspaper.
Councillor, do you have a suggestion outside of the things that have been raised already by the staff? Is there an avenue that you're saying that?
Well, I think it's putting something in the letterbox or delivering it, couriering it to the house or the shed or whatever it is. That's going to be more certain.
Okay,
And then also on the email thing, is there a way to find out whether people have received the email and read it? I know when I get emails from councillors, sometimes you can't get out of it, you've got to say, yes, I saw it.
I think we can take those two things away as actions, and I'll ask the officers to report back to us on the thoughts around that, if you're comfortable with that, Councillor. I think it's worth exploring whether or not, as you say, something can be delivered to letterboxes in a timely fashion, and whether or not there's software that could be used to detect whether or not someone's read. Also bearing in mind that some software packages block that type of tracking, so best they can. Thank you. I'll come now to Deputy Mayor Fowler.
Yep, through you, Your Worship, could I please know what's the makeup of the plan hearings? Who are the members that make that up, please?
Thank you, Councillor.
I did have a recommendation in the report that just notes that there will be a future report to Council on the makeup of the hearings panel and their delegations. So that report will come to you. Council has a hearings panel, and then the alternate method would be to appoint a fully independent hearings panel. So that will be the subject of a future report to you.
I'm going to build on the Deputy Mayor's question and note that within, I believe it's 4.11, there is noting that there may be an option of appointing a joint hearings panel with Napier City Council. Is that still a live option?
Through you, Madam Chair. So yes, Napier City Council are also have jurisdiction within the Esk Valley, and so they will be putting forward their own plan change. And if the stars align and we get to the hearings point of that process at the same time as Napier, it makes sense to appoint the one hearings panel to hear submissions on both plan changes, so that, that the same information is being given to the same panel. This lined up decisions are being made.
Thank you, and not for anything other than noting, my strong opinion would be independent hearings commissioners would be advantageous, given that we all have strong connections to communities in this area or individuals in this area. I know most people around this table do, and that would get the best independent outcome. So I'll come now to Councillor Noel Oostic.
Two questions, if I may, Chair.
Please.
One of them is, can you explain to me how NCC has jurisdiction in the Esk Valley? Because as far as I know, I mean, yes, they're halfway up a hill, but...
All right, thank you. That's a good clarification question.
Through you, Madam Chair. So the Napier City jurisdiction goes to Hill Road, the corner of Hill Road and the State Highway, and up to the Esk Valley, the Esk River. So it's sort of the Bayview side of that is in Napier City Council's jurisdiction.
So there is a attachment.
They're not really on the valley floor at all.
Sorry, what was that, Councillor?
They're not really on the valley floor at all.
They are, if you look at Hill Road and the State Highway, there's quite a lot of valley floor in that quadrant.
So, Councillor, there is an attachment to our papers which shows some mapping, which shows how it goes into the Napier City Council area.
The next one actually probably is more of a suggestion than a question. I know that at least 40% of the Esk Valley is owned by people that don't live there, so a mail drop into letterboxes is probably not that helpful, but certainly a sign put up there somewhere would be much more beneficial. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. I think officers definitely note there is high interest in how we are going to make sure those who should be notified are reached. So, all right, I'll come now to Councillor Montepiero Hendry.
Thank you, through you, Chair. I just have some questions for clarification, but I just thought we should step back and just give a nod to those who are grieving, those who lost while we're discussing this around the table. So just a bit of aroha out there to those who have lost their homes, their livelihoods and more. So my questions of clarification, just 4.11, at officer level there have been some hooies, just making sure that we are actually on the same page as Napier. What does that mean if we're not? If we were inclined to say yes to the release or we weren't, are we sure we're on the same waka as Napier?
Through you, Madam Chair, the discussions at this stage have been at officer level. My understanding is that Napier City Council will be having workshops and meetings through the months of July and August.
Okay, thank you. I'm wondering if there needs to be something in a rec that it's on the proviso of, so that we don't end up with a juxtaposition of two different outcomes. I'll just park that there. I just wanted to clarify, so this is the prohibition of new development and habitable dwellings not existing. I'm just making sure I'm on the right page.
Through you, Madam Chair, that's correct. District plan rules are future looking. Existing use rights are protected under Section 10 of the Resource Management.
Perfect, thank you. And we've got a legal and statutory obligation to do this, to release this and to notify this, to protect people, their livelihoods and their property. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. I note you made mention of potentially changing the recommendations. Is there something you're wanting action there or help with?
Sorry, I just thought about it now. I'm just wondering if we're putting through a recommendation to release, notify and go ahead, and then our neighbours say, well, Pahoa, where does that leave us? Sorry, it was more of a...
Mr. Allen, you look like you might have something to say there.
Through your worship, I think the other comment I was going to make around there's a future paper coming around the appointment of the commission and that approach around hearing of the plan change. So I think that's the time to make sure that we're aligned with Napier around the hearings and the process and the decision making that would happen.
Are you satisfied with that, councillor?
Thank you, yeah, I'm happy with that, and just, I know we're not discussing the detail, but it would be really helpful to know that the LiDAR and everything is cut by. Thank you.
And I'll come now to councillor Corbyn.
Thank you, Your Worship. Just thinking about Bruce's comment there, I think it'd be better if it was aligned around the notification as well.
Okay,
so everything's in sync rather than.
So I'll just give Mr. Allen a chance to hear what you've just said, or Ms. Hill. 1 moment, please.
Through you, Madam Chair, we're confident that there is more risk in delaying the notification of this. We cannot control what the Napier City Council does, and so if they were to delay their decision making another month or another month and another month, are we willing to sit on our statutory obligations for something that we as council officers cannot control?
Ultimately, team, we cannot unknow the information that the regional council has generated, and we must give effect to. We are liable for the timing around that if it's delayed, and if we put ourselves at the mercy of another council's timeframe, whatever that ends up being, we're not upholding our statutory obligations, which is what the staff are essentially saying. Correct me if I'm wrong. So their recommendation is that we continue with this process, and at the appointment of hopefully a joint hearings committee, the two parts will become aligned, and the joint hearings committee will hear the submissions across both the district and the city. Councillor Corbyn.
Thank you, Your Worship. I understand that fully, but I would encourage us to ask Napier to hurry up.
Yes. I'm very happy to do that.
Rather than delay.
No, I agree. It creates unnecessary angst and confusion. I absolutely agree. So I will personally call the Mayor and have a chat to him about this issue as well. From that level, I know an officer conversation has been happening, but I will talk to the Mayor. Okay, are there any other questions? No, in which case we do have recommendations on page 36. Do I have a mover? Thank you, Councillor Noel-Lustig. Can I have a seconder? Thank you, Councillor Corbyn. Is there any further comments or debate? Councillor Gibson.
If I'm allowed, thank you, Your Worship. I'm concerned that the LiDAR information was taken after a 1 in 400 event, Cyclone Gabriel, before 1 million cubic metres of silt was removed. We're planning on a 1 in 100 event. Surely that should have been done after all that 1 million cubic metres was removed, and we would hope that the regional council will have avoided the slash and silt that would come down in future events. And there are some properties in this model that weren't even flooded in a 1 in 400 year event. So why are we excluding them from 1 in 100 year possibility? So I can't support this motion. It needs to go back and be
So
better
councillor,
modelled.
I'll remind you again that it is for the independent hearings panel to test all of what you have said against the law. It is not for politicians. So the issues you have raised will be tested through that process. So are there any other questions, comments or debate? No, in which case I will put those recommendations. All those in favour? Any against? Thank you. Noted. Councillor Gibson. That has passed. All right, team, we'll now move on to item 9, which is the Lyndhurst extension and the notification of proposed plan change and notice of requirement. I'd like to welcome forward again myself. You're already in the right place.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Again, I'm happy to take my report largely as read. Again, this is a district plan decision, a primarily process-led with a substantive consideration of the issue left to a hearings panel in the future. So again, the district plan needs to give effect to higher order documents, and instead of the national policy statement on natural hazards, the higher order documents in this case are the national policy statement for urban development. So this Lyndhurst extension area is the third stage of the Lyndhurst development, and long identified within the Hastings Urban Development Strategy and reaffirmed in your recent future development strategy. So this plan changes to rezone that area for residential development, and I'm happy to take any questions on the paper.
Thank you, Ms Hill. So I will open it up for questions. I'll come first to Councillor Watkins.
Thank you, Worship. It's notified here, Parkawai Road, Lyndhurst Road intersection. There's two possible improvements mentioned. One is traffic lights and one is a traffic island. What is the process and what is the thinking about that, please? I mean, Parkawai Road is such a busy through road. Another set of traffic lights, in my view, wouldn't just impede traffic flow completely, but that option's in there, so I just want to hear from you.
Through you, Madam Chair. So I have put the two options there in my report. The intersection upgrade of Lyndhurst Pakawhai is not integral to the structure plan, but the development within the Lyndhurst extension area does feed through that intersection. In your current long-term plan, there is a budget line for a roundabout, but I believe that the infrastructure team is re-looking at that budget line in light of the two different options. Mr. Thew may want to add to that.
Through your worship, the team is still looking at both options to work out actually what's the right solution for that intersection as that development comes live. And there's currently traffic modelling going on to understand whether a roundabout is the right way to work it through or whether traffic signals. Both have pros and cons for different user types, so that'll be part of the work that comes through to finally inform not only what the scale of budget request is, the timing of when that intersection upgrade would be needed, and any other impacts it has. So that's still work that is well in train, and there's a wider transport modelling stuff we'll be looking to bring to you as part of that LTP discussion, and that intersection is one part.
I'll come now to Councillor Lorcan.
Yes, thank you, through Chair. To pick up on Councillor Watkins' query about the Pakawhai traffic management. As a resident of Mahora myself, Pakawhai Road is incredibly busy, and more so. Lots of schools along there. We have retirement villages and that kind of thing. Turning right into there is really tricky. So anything that will make Pakawhai Road safer in terms of getting into that street from Duke, Fitzroy, Williams and all the others, I'd like to be put across that. And I think the surrounding suburbs need to be kept informed of that. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Lorcan. So I'll refocus this team back on this particular paper, which is around public notification of the plan change, the proposed plan change, and also the notice of requirements specifically around the Lyndhurst extension. Are there any other questions around that? No, in which case I'm very happy to move the recommendations outlined on page 46 from the chair. Can I have a seconder, please? Thank you, Councillor Watkins. So if there's any debate or comment, please let me know. No, otherwise I look forward to seeing this move through proper process. On the surface, it looks like a really pragmatic way of achieving requirements in that area by having land that is multi-purpose in terms of stormwater retention. But we will see it go through the proper process. Councillor Nolestick, I note your light is on.
Oh, thank you, Chair. Can you just sort of, this is more of an explanation than anything else. 3.8, there is general support for a 30-metre setback with acknowledgement that this could be reduced with site-specific mitigations. Can you just explain further
what does that mean in plain terms?
So currently within the district plan, there is often a 30-metre buffer rule in play where you have the interface between a residential zoned land and plains production zone land. And so the idea of that buffer is that the effects of dust, spray, noise are reduced by the residential activities being further from the plains production activities. For the Lyndhurst extension area, there will be these boundaries created, rather than just having a blanket approach of 30 metres for all plain zone urban interface. What I have looked at is what are the current plains production uses along those boundaries and focused that setback in just those locations. So where there is cropping or orcharding taking place, I have looked to put that 30-metre setback rule in place. Where it's plains production, but it's used by Lindisfarne for fields, or it's going to be used for stormwater detention, a 30-metre setback isn't necessary, so I haven't applied it.
Thank you.
The mitigation measures that developers may want to seek to use to get closer could be things like planting, fencing, potentially no complaints covenants, that sort of thing. And the resource consent process is the right time for developers to put those ideas to our consents team, say, look, this is how we're going to mitigate the effects of that reverse sensitivity, and it can be assessed then.
Thank you for that.
Okay, if there's no further debate or comments, I'll put the recommendations as outlined on page 46. All those in favour? Aye. Any against? Thank you, that's carried. Thank you, Ms Hill. All right, we'll move now on to item 10, which is parking controls, and I invite James forward. Oh, the whole team. Oh, hang on, we don't have a James, we have an Alison. Welcome.
Take the report as being read and open the floor to any questions.
Okay, are there any questions? We're looking at the removal of one P5 restriction and the change to a P5 time restriction in one area. Councillor Milmine.
Thank you. Through your worship. I note the Market Street South is to add change two of the parks to P5. I'm just wondering if it's been thought about just changing one to P5. I know that there's not much parking along that stretch.
Just a correction there, that's actually changing to a loading zone in Market Street.
Oh, sorry, yes, but with a 5 minute time restriction.
Yeah.
Yep.
So to make it easier for bigger trucks and vans, we take away 2 spaces. There was originally 2 spaces back when there was post boxes, but we took that away when the post boxes moved. So we'll just put back what was in place prior.
Sorry, I thought it was only one previously, but you've just explained
it
why
was
that,
2.
so thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Milmine. Are there any other questions? Thank you, Councillor Nixon, for moving. Can I have a seconder, please? Thank you, Councillor Daniel. So if there's no comments or debate, I'll put the recommendations outlined on page 53. All those in favour?
Aye.
Any against? Thank you, that's carried. Oh, Councillor Watkins, I apologise. I didn't see your light. Do you have a question?
Thank you, Worship. Look, I just had a question about the parking zone in Market Street. I understand you want to keep vans out of the construction site. When the construction site is finished, are we still permitting vans to enter in on the new pavement to service shops? Or are we putting this in to ensure that vans don't use that new pavement area and they have a place to park in Market Street?
Thank you, Councillor Watkins. Do we have an answer to that?
So they will still have accessibility through the mall during restricted times, but we're trying to keep them out of there as much as possible by making this area easily accessible.
And I think this new parking provision is specifically for those who need to do drop-offs during those restricted hours. Okay, team, right, we've put that, we've moved that, and we're moving on. So we'll now move on to item 11, which is summary of recommendations of the Community and Civic Futures Subcommittee. I note the report writer is Ms Stettner, but I'd like to invite the chair of the Community and Civic Futures Subcommittee to make any comment if she would like to do so.
Thank you. Do you, sorry.
You can do a dynamic duo.
Yeah, we can do a duo. Ms Stettner wrote the paper. I was just gonna, should she go first?
If you would like that, we can do that.
Probably she should speak
Okay,
to her mum.
Ms Stettner.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Council is responsible for appointing 6 trustees to the Te Mata Park Trust Board, and 2 of those come from our council. At the end of October this year, there's going to be a vacancy created because Jonathan Hensman's term expires. So the Community and Civic Futures Subcommittee is responsible for recommending to Council the appointment of these trustees to the board. At its meeting on the 6th of May, it recommended that Council advertise the upcoming vacancy and to basically kick off that recruitment process. Pending Council agreement, that process will begin, and the subcommittee will kind of manage that appointment process and recommend back to the council at a future date the person they recommend should be appointed for that vacancy.
Thank you, Ms Stettner. Councillor Montpellier-Henry.
Thank you, Ms Stettner. So following on, basically it's just the Community and Civic Futures Subcommittee believes that the advertising for this position will entice a few more rock stars that we may not yet have met by reaching far and wide, and will hopefully unearth and capture and provide some stunning applicants for the Te Mata Park Trust Board. I'm excited to see who our councillors, Teo Skipworth and Ross, along with the chair, Mr. Lewin, identify as their preferred candidate for this vacancy. And we wish you well on your quest to find the next trustee member for this table. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Montpellier-Henry. And I note that Councillor Noel Lustig has declared a conflict of interest and stepped back from the table, just so everyone's aware. So I'll now open it up for questions, and I'll come first to Councillor Gibson.
Thank you, Worship. Just given the financial constraints of Te Mata Trust, I would be wondering if 5 trustees would work just as well as 6, and if they left it open, would there be a financial benefit to the trust?
Ms Stettner, what does the Constitution say?
Through you, Madam Chair. So all the trustees are volunteers. So yeah, they give up their time freely. But yeah.
Okay. Looks like we're satisfied on that, thank you. Okay, in which case, team, we do have recommendations on page 58. I wonder if Councillor Milmine may like to move those, and I apologise, Deputy Mayor Fowler, I failed to note that you too have declared a conflict and stepped back from the table. Councillor Milmine, would you like to move the recommendations? And Councillor Monteperry Hendry? Yep, great. In which case, I'm just picking movers and seconders at the moment, movers and shakers. So on that basis, I'll put the recommendations. All those in favour? Any against? Thank you, that's carried. Okay, team, I will now move us on to item 12, which is Heretaunga Tokatinoa Māori Standing Committee and appointment of a mana whenua member. And Ms. Stettner.
Madam Chair, the Heretaunga Takatoa Māori Standing Committee membership provides for up to 8 members from mana whenua. So if you remember back at your meeting on the 25th of March, you appointed 6 mana whenua members. At that stage, we hadn't received a nomination from Ngāti Pahuwera. That has since come in, and they have put forward Mr. Tom Keefe. And so in light of that, I've put forward this recommendation in line with that nomination that Mr. Keefe be appointed as the last mana whenua member on the committee. Thank you.
And do we have any questions, team? No? In which case, can I please have a mover for the recommendations as outlined on page 60? Thank you, Councillor Ratcliffe. Can I have a seconder? Councillor Lorcan. So if there are any comments or debate? No? In which case, I will put those recommendations. All those in favour? Any against? Thank you, that's carried. Okay, team, we're now moving on to item number 13, which is our amendment to the schedule of council meetings. There's a few. A proactive mover. I like that, Councillor Nixon. Thank you. Can I have a seconder? Thank you, Councillor Gibson. I think based on these speedy hands, Ms. Stettner, there's no need for you to outline the paper. It's taken as read. Are there any comments or debate? No, in which case I'll put those recommendations as outlined on page 62. All those in favour? Any against? Thank you, that's carried. There are no minor or urgent items, and so we will move on to item 16, which is a recommendation to exclude the public from items 17, 18, 19, 20 and 21. And also a resolution to allow Mr. Greg Timms to be present via Zoom in the peak session for agenda item 21. I'd like to come now to Mr. Cameron to explain the reasons for excluding the public.
It's through you, Madam Chair. So there's 5 agenda items today that the Chief Executive recommends Council considers in committee. Agenda item 17 is a simple administrative matter to lift an item off the table, and that refers to item 18. Items 18 and 20 relate to Council's commercially sensitive information and commercially sensitive information of external organisations and protection of Council's current negotiation positions. Items 19 and 21 both contain personal and private information of individuals. So for those reasons relating to those particular agenda items, the Chief Executive recommends those 5 agenda items are considered in committee.
Thank you, Mr. Cameron. Are there any questions regarding those reasons? No, in which case can I please have a mover? Thank you, Councillor Watkins, seconded by Councillor Ratcliffe. On that basis, I will put the motion as outlined on page 63 and 64. All those in favour? Any against? Thank you, that's carried. And a very warm thank you to any of the community who have been tuning in online and for those who have joined us in chamber today. We will now move into our public excluded part of the meeting.